Hello, Rama Pupoda. Hope all are in great health, good, feeling well, happy, and peaceful. Now let's continue with the next devotee, Munagala vengataramiah. In September 1896, a young schoolboy who was studying in Madurai went home to his mother and reported, "Mother, a Brahmin boy from a neighboring school has run away from home." Little did he know that destiny would bind him to that same runaway boy. His namesake, that he would meet this boy, now an acknowledged sage, at Kanda Ashramam in 1918, and that from 1930 onwards he would remain his constant companion till the end. This young schoolboy was S. Venkataraman, later known as Munagala as Vengataramiah, the compiler of talks with Ramana Maharishi, a book that is almost a Bible for all sincere devotees of Bhagavan. Munagala Vengataramiah came from a village called Solavandan. His ancestors and his own brothers studied the Vedas in the Veda Padasala there. He knew Sanskrit well, but chose to go to an English school in the next town. Subsequently, he went on to study in a college. He got married even as he was studying. Since he was research oriented, he found himself a job in a laboratory in Mumbai. A daughter was born, and though he was extremely fond of his daughter, he focused all his attention on his research work. After doing extensive research for 10 years, he went back to college. He graduated from Presidency College with a gold medal and then taught in one of the prestigious colleges in Chennai from 1912 to 1918. Even during this period, he led the life of an ascetic. Professors were given huge houses to stay in on the campus. He requested his wife and daughter to stay in the huge house, while he himself lived in the small outhouse meant for the watchman. Such was his simplicity. Even in those days, Munagala Vengataramiah was eager to pursue the spiritual life. He met a Mahatma who taught him the 10 Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra. The Mahatma told Vengataramiah to read the Upanishads every day, and this is exactly what he did till the end of his life. He had all the Upanishads on his table, and any time he felt inclined to, he would read them. Sometime later, his daughter, whom he loved very dearly, passed away. He was plunged in grief and inconsolable. Restlessly, he started wandering, seeking peace. He reached Arunachala in 1918. He was told of a sage who lived in Kanda Ashramam. When he went there, he came to know that the sage was the very same runaway boy of his childhood, now known as Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi. However, he had to leave as his service to the Mahatma near Chennai could not be interrupted. In 1922, the Mahatma passed away, plunging Vengataramiah in greater sorrow. The Mahatma's last words to his student were to continue reading the Upanishads. Munagala Vengataramiah continued studying these texts for the next 5 years. He visited Bhagavan once again in 1927 at Ramana Ashramam. During this visit, he recognized fully that Sri Ramana was his Sadguru, and from then on stayed at the ashram. These are Munagala's own words. In a very critical and distressing period of his life, a humble devotee, referring to himself, sought the presence of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi for his own peace of mind and lived in the ashram with the kind permission of Sri Niranjara Ananda Swami. One day, he got a letter from the government of India extending her job offer as head of the research department in Delhi. The job was a very lucrative one and would have given Munagala both name and fame. The offer was in recognition of his discovery of a chemical that helped ink from solidifying. Prior to this discovery, people found it extremely difficult to write with a pen because the ink would constantly dry up. Munagala showed Bhagavan the job offer. Since Bhagavan's reaction did not seem encouraging, he turned it down. In the presence of and under the guidance of Bhagavan, Munagala plunged into sadhana. He started living at Palakuttu. Telugu was the mother tongue of vengataramiah. He spoke English and Tamil fluently and was well versed in Sanskrit. However, he felt it necessary to be acquainted with literacy Tamil. Bhagavan then introduced him to Tamil works, especially Saiva Siddhanta treatises written by Saivite saints. Bhagavan himself taught them to him. These were essential for one who was later to become the compiler of talks with Ramana Maharishi. To quote Munagala, again, putting himself in the third person, the seeker took it upon himself to note down as occasion arose the sweet, refreshing, and enlightening words of the Master. This self-imposed task was undertaken for the purification of his own mind and better understanding of the subtle and profound words of Sri Bhagavan. When Bhagavan answered the question of a seeker, it was not the number of words that made the answers so intense, but the fact that the words were charged with a deeper meaning. Hence, translation took time. Sometimes seekers asked questions in English or other languages, and this had to be translated into Tamil for Bhagavan. Bhagavan would then give the answer in Tamil, and Munagala would translate the answer into the language concerned. He had to be totally faithful to the translation. Dr. T. M. P. Mahadevan writes in his foreword to Talks with Ramana Maharishi, "We cannot be too grateful to Munagala S. Vengataramiah for the record that he kept of the talks covering a period of 4 years from 1935 to 1939. Those devotees who had the good fortune of seeing Bhagavan reminisce and recall with delight their own mental record of the words of the Master, despite the fact that the great sage of Arunachala taught for the most part through silence, he did instruct through speech. Also, and that too lucidly, without baffling and beclouding the minds of his listeners. One would wish that every word that he uttered had been preserved for posterity." Major Chadwick, in his introduction to the Talks series, writes, "The 4 years that are covered in Talks were the days when the ashram reached the summit of its glory. Maharishi's health was on the whole good, and the hall where he sat was open day and night to welcome one and all. Visitors flocked there from every corner of the world. There was hardly a country that was not represented at one time or another. Sri Bhagavan glowed like the sun, and even those who did not understand him or agree with his words were fascinated and could not help but be elevated by his presence. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had Mahendranath Gupta, M., a school teacher, as his English interpreter. Here, Munagala was Bhagavan's M. Munagala kept a record of whatever he interpreted. He would then take the notebook to Bhagavan, who would edit or correct what had been written. That is how we have talks with Ramana Maharishi. I have seen the original manuscript myself in the form of notebooks with Bhagavan's corrections. I also had the honor of typing some of those handwritten manuscripts along with devotees like typist Gitu and Ramana. The whole typed bulk was submitted to a committee of selected devotees, most of whom were staying in Chennai. When the edited bulk was returned, it was handed over to Munagala and Chadwick for further verification. Pages after pages were struck off with red ink, with one repeated remark on the margin: repetition. When Chadwick saw those deletions, he got so upset and angry that he rushed into the office and shouted, "Who are these people to delete passages quoted from Bhagavan? Bhagavan has a special purpose in repeating the same passage worded differently. It is to suit each seeker's individual understanding capacity. Not a single word should be removed." They were all verified and approved by Bhagavan. His exhortation was carried out. We owe the present full version of Talks to Chadwick. Major Chadwick had the highest respect for the veracity of Munagala's capacity. So much so, Chadwick once humorously said, "Munagala is the English mouth of Bhagavan." Bhagavan, sensing the intelligence and enthusiasm of his disciple, asked Munagala to translate ancient texts like Tirupura, Rahasya, Advaita, Bodha, Deepika, and Kaivalya Navanitam. It is an interesting story how Tirupura Rahasya came to be translated by Munagala into English. Once, Daivarata, who was staying at Nepal, sent Bhagavan a hand-copied manuscript of a Sanskrit text entitled Tirupura Rahasya that he had read at the Royal Library. Bhagavan was happy reading it and expressed that a translation of it in English would help seekers who could not read Sanskrit. Munagala volunteered to undertake that work. On reading the English version, Chadwick was so happy that he offered help to type it and arranged for a special black leather cloth binding for it. It was then presented to Bhagavan, who kept it in the revolving library shelf next to his couch. It was lent to serious seekers who were keen to read ancient Advaitic texts. Bhagavan appreciated this English translation by Munagala so much that he encouraged him to translate Kaivalya Navanidam Tamil and Advaita Bodha Deepika Sanskrit into English. They were also typed, leather bound, and kept in the library next to Bhagavan's couch. Only later were they printed as Ashram's publications. With the cooperation of David McIver, vengataramiah, and already translated into English, Bhagavan's Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, 5 heart-melting Tamil poems to Arunachala. This was the seed and foundation for the future edition of collected works of Ramana Maharishi that was edited by author Osborne. The close association between Bhagavan and Munagala is a paradigmatic example for true Guru-Sishya relationship. That's all, folks. Let's continue in the next section. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupoda.